whose lifetime sentence for a drug offense was commuted by former President Trump. Kardashian now hoping her celebrity will help Lucio, posting, "So heartbreaking to read this letter from Melissa Lucio's children, begging for the state not to kill their mother. There are so many unresolved questions surrounding this case and the evidence that was used to convict her."
And when we turn on the TV, a lot of us are streaming. A new survey says streaming of TV and movies jumped 18% of the past year to nearly 170 billion minutes viewed every single week. The survey says nearly half of us are feeling overwhelmed by all the choices available on streaming services. This is ABC News.
Gah! I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending Ooma and their all-in-one phone, video, and collaboration solution.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Sherry Preston, ABC News.
This is ONN.
I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network. High schools in Ohio could soon be taking a page from colleges when it comes to name, image, and likeness. Yolanda Harris with ONN affiliate WBNS TV in Columbus reports.
Next month, the Ohio High School Athletic Association will vote on allowing students to sign endorsement deals as long as it's not pay to play. Exceptions include endorsements from things like casinos, alcohol, or tobacco companies. If passed, it would go into effect on May 16th. I'm Yolanda Harris.
Testimony began yesterday in the murder trial of former Columbus Police Vice Officer Andrew Mitchell. Officer Matthew McDaniel took the stand. Here's ONN's Tracy Townsend.
Mitchell says he shot Donna Castleberry in self-defense after she stabbed him. The state's first witness was a police officer who responded to the scene.
Officer Carter, who's one of our canine officers, is there rendering aid. Officer Mitchell to a laceration to his hand, and there's a female in the back seat, appeared to be deceased.
Mitchell's defense is arguing that he had no choice but to use force. This trial is expected to last 2 weeks. I'm Tracy Townsend.
Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb has filed a motion to expunge the record of more than 4,000 people convicted of minor marijuana possession cases dating back to 2017. The cases involved marijuana possession of 20 grams or less. That's less than an ounce. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Calls and conversations continue in less than 3 minutes as the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues after this.
Wheeling Coin and Hobby on 10th Street in Wheeling, next to the Bridge Tavern in downtown Wheeling, wants to buy any and all unwanted gold and silver jewelry. They are paying top dollar for 10, 14, 18, and 22 karat gold plus 925 sterling silver. They also want to buy collectible coins and paper money from before 1933. Wheeling Coin and Hobby is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Saturday. Coin and Hobby, 304-232-8430, and add them on Facebook.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Most of us are faced with uncertainty every day. Your job, your finances, sporting events, schooling for your children, and so much more. With so much uncertainty surrounding you, there is one auto dealership that you can be certain about, and that's Doan Ford. You can be certain that you always get a great deal and the best service afterwards. Being in business for over 50 years has given Doan Ford the reputation of being a strong, reliable dealership. Be certain. Choose Doan Ford. Online at DoanFord.com.
I'm not buying till I check Doan Ford.
It's the little moments that have the biggest impact. Every time you mentor a child or donate your time or money, you empower their future. You can help make a difference and be a hero in the eyes of a child, one simple act of encouragement at a time. Positive childhoods lead to promising futures. Help prevent child abuse and neglect in your community. Learn more at octf.ohio.gov.
If you turn 65 this year, you are eligible for Medicare. To help you understand your choices and possibility of financial assistance, the Ohio Department of Insurance is holding Welcome to Medicare events across the state. So join us at a free event near you. Make sure your plan suits your budget and your needs. For more information, contact the Ohio Department of Insurance at 1-800-686-1578 or go online at insurance.ohio.gov.
Live and local talk is just around the corner. Stay right here on The Watchdog. The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Live from the Robinson Auto Group studios, this is the Valley's longest-running morning show, the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe from WKKX and WVLY.
It is 47 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 46 degrees here at the home studios in Elm Grove, 46 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group studios downtown Wheeling. In the heart of the Ohio Valley, it's a cloudy and misty morning. Might see a little bit of drizzle hanging around this morning. But this afternoon, we'll see more scattered rain showers, kind of misty drizzle this morning, rain showers this afternoon. And that's going to be the case tomorrow pretty much as well. 58 the high today, 50 tomorrow, 47 with showers and maybe some morning flurries on Saturday. Full forecast coming up a bit later on here. What have we been talking about and what are we going to be talking about? Well, a special showing of the documentary Moundsville at the Grave Creek Mound Museum is set for this Saturday. We'll talk here in just a couple of minutes with the director of the movie, John Miller, about his film, what prompted him to do a movie about Moundsville, what kind of things are in that movie, and we'll talk about the event coming up at Grave Creek Mound. Ohio County School Board election is going to be a big draw this May. We'll continue our conversations with candidates today. Andy Garber is dropping by, one of the candidates running for Ohio County School Board. New ethics allegations against Congressman Alex Mooney have arrived. We talked about it briefly yesterday. Ogden newspaper reporter Stephen Adams in today to give us a bit more details about what's going on with that. The West Virginia congressional delegation yesterday, Republicans all, blamed Biden's policies for higher gas prices at a hearing on Capitol Hill. Dems in the hearing pushed back against oil executives as being the cause of the problem. And it's opening day for baseball, and Biff and I have been kicking around some of those stories. I mentioned last hour, right at the tail end of the hour, about a shooting incident a shooting that was stopped apparently down in Jackson County, West Virginia, where a 16-year-old kid stole a gun, according to the sheriff, stole a gun from a home improvement store over the weekend, gave it to his 15-year-old brother. 15-year-old brother had it in his backpack and was taking it to school, ended up brandishing that gun on the bus. The other students saw it, and so the gun was confiscated. And the sheriff now says that there was a plan to go into the school. These two kids, 15, 16-year-old boys, had a plan to go into the school to shoot and, in the words of the sheriff, execute someone in the school. Metro News is following it. I find that a frightening story. Another story from downstate that I want to at least put on your radar screen. A middle school principal is under investigation down in the Huntington area. They had an assembly, and this female principal told female students, I guess the assembly was on security, safety, and maybe sexual assault, and she told the students, according to reports from parents and students who were at the assembly, she told the female students that if you dress provocatively, if you dress enticingly, and you are then attacked, don't bother to come and report it to me. Don't bother to come and report it to me. She talked about the dress code and said, that if you, essentially she was telling these girls, if you dress with short skirts or tight tops or whatever, you're asking for it, so don't bother to come to me. Students who were there say that the woman told them not to wear pajamas, crop tops, ripped jeans, and not to show their shoulders because, quote, boys are going to touch them and joke about touching them. And then she said if they did get touched inappropriately and they were wearing inappropriate clothing, don't tell school officials because the school's not going to do anything about it. It's a big yikes. It's a big yikes. I thought by now we have come to the conclusion in our country that a woman has a right at any point, no matter how she dresses or what she does, she does not have the, nobody has the right to assault her, attack her, touch her shoulder, whatever. It's hard for me to believe. But it's just hard to believe, Biff.
Well, I think what else is too, and if you hadn't said, if you would have just said a principal did this and didn't identify whether it was male or female, how many people would have immediately thought that's a male principal that's saying that?
Absolutely right.
The fact that it's coming from a female principal makes it even, I mean, how? I mean, that's what got me. Not that it matters, but if you would have said, okay.
It does matter. I mean, that's the real kicker. I agree with you. That's like, it's like the final reveal of the story is, and the principal was a woman. So here's a woman telling girls is this a high school? It's a high school, right? Middle school. Telling girls in a middle school, if you dress inappropriately, if you wear ripped jeans or show your shoulders, and somehow you are attacked or touched by a boy, don't bother to report it because you were asking for it. I don't know if she used those words, but that's the clear implication. And this was from a woman to the female students. Wow. The principal is on a 3-day unpaid suspension. I love this. But the school system says it is not related to these allegations. Oh, come on now. A day after these allegations surfaced, they put her on a 3-day unpaid suspension. But it's not related. No. It was, she didn't clean the blackboard good enough. Gee, many Christmas.
So they found something else to get her on. Is that what they want us to believe?
That's what they want us to believe. I mean, can't you just be honest? We heard these allegations. We take them very seriously. And until we have fully investigated them, we're putting our unpaid leave. Why would you just not say that?
Well, and how serious?
It's not related to the allegations. Jeez.
How serious are you taking it if it's only 3 days?
Well, that's true. Well, I'm going to assume that 3 days is for their time to investigate. I mean, what we have now are students and parents who are making these claims. I suppose you want to, talk to the principal first and so on and see what she has to say about it. But it's not just one student; it's multiple students who have said that this is what what the principal said. I guess I would wonder too. Now that I'm thinking out loud about that, Biff, were there other teachers in that assembly? Were there other teachers there? Probably there were. If you hold a big assembly of kids from the school, teachers would bring their classroom and would be there. So other teachers surely heard it as well. Anyway, it's really an icky story to me that a female, any principal, let's begin with that, but that a female principal would tell female students in their school, "8:17 here on the Watchdog Morning Show." Is my guest ready yet or not, Biffy?
Yes, he is.
There's a documentary, PBS has done it. We've been hearing about it for some time now, called Moundsville. Cleverly enough, it's about Moundsville. Going to have a special showing of it this week at Grave Creek Mound Museum down in Moundsville. And I've been wanting for a long time to talk to the director of the movie and find out more what prompted him to write it and what kinds of things are in it. There was a piece I posted on Facebook maybe last week. It was really a profile of the Ruttenberg store in Moundsville, and I believe that came out of the Moundsville documentary. So John Miller is here with us. John, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you, Howard. So great to be with you this morning.
So what sent you to do a documentary on Moundsville?
I wanted to tell a deeper story about America and this part of the country in particular, especially after the 2016 election when you had so many stories that were really just focused on Trump and national politics. I thought, what if we told a story of a classic American town but didn't talk about politics at all? What if we made it about the people? And Moundsville was so unique because it had so many layers of history. And I grew up as an American in Europe, in Belgium, where you have cathedrals over 1,000 years old. And in America, nothing's that old, except in Moundsville, where you have this mound sitting in the middle of town that's prehistoric. Then you have this incredible history with white settlement in the 18th century. You have conflict with Native Americans. You have the rise of industry. You have the world's biggest toy factory. And now you have a Walmart and a hospital and a correctional facility. Like, what could be more typical for an American town? So the idea was to tell the story of the town through its people without voiceover, without outside experts, and let the people speak for the town, again, without the sort of noise of national politics.
The story of Moundsville is, to a large extent, I think, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, it is the story of many other small towns across the country with a decline of the local business, the big box stores coming in. How do you survive in that kind of environment? Moundsville is not unique. It is representative, I think, of what happens across America. Is that a conclusion you draw as well?
It's so typical, Howard. And what I also wanted to show, and this is in the movie, that modern Moundsville, it's not a hellhole. There are really good people doing really energetic things and coping. Yeah, it's not as prosperous as the 50s, but you have small businesses like Shuttler Cabinets, which is in the film, which is a company that makes kitchen cabinets. You have great outreach institutions like Appalachian Outreach, which Rose Hart started, which is a charity that helps people. You have tourism at the Mound and the penitentiary. Like, life isn't dead there. Like, things are still happening, and there's still, like, energy. And so I wanted to show that, too, that there is a positive way in which people are grappling with the future, but you do have to face reality. And so reality is the factories have gone, and you got to cope with that. And so in this story, I wanted to show that transition and people looking forward to the future.
And of course, I've been around long enough to remember when Walmart first came in, and I remember when Moundsville was in its glory as far as retail and so on. What's interesting about Moundsville to me is, though, local retailers have made a strong effort to survive, even in the wake of the arrival of the big box stores, the arrival of the big malls and shopping plazas on the outside of town up in Wheeling and over in St. Clairsville. And yet you have some small local businesses in Moundsville that continue to survive.
So you mentioned Rutenberg's, which actually is not in the movie, to my regret, because you just can't put everything in one movie. But I've developed a fascination with telling the story over and over again. So on my blog, which I encourage listeners to check out, moundsville.org, I've collected all these other stories about Moundsville. So Rutenberg is one of them. It's a shoe store that's been in since 1930. How does she do it? Ilya, the owner, she says, well, good customer service and premium products. So I bought a pair of boots there made in Pennsylvania. They were $200, more than I'd pay at Walmart, but they were made in America, and they were great boots.
Yeah, I read, maybe it was off of your blog, I read somewhere, or it was reprinted somewhere just last week, that piece about Rutenberg's, which I found really interesting, and the comments that she had to make about how she's managed to adapt her business to a more personal style of business, recognizing the specific needs of her specific customers and sort of super serving them and not worrying about trying to, quote, compete with the big box stores.
Yeah, that's right. And this is something that all of America has to reckon with, and that we don't always have an honest conversation about, because there's no one answer. It's complicated. Like Walmart offers really cheap stuff and a standard of living, material goods that these towns didn't have 40 years ago. But it takes away something, too, and you have to reckon with that. And you also have to think about how to compete if you're a small business. And I think that's a great template, that personal relationship, that real engagement with the community, knowing who your customers are. And in the end, your profits go to a local business who spends it in town instead of shareholders in New York and all over the world.
What kind of response have you had to the movie?
Outside of Moundsville, incredibly positive. It was picked up by PBS. It's available on 338 stations. It was reviewed in The Atlantic and all kinds of prestigious magazines and on the radio. In town, people often like it, but often think that it's too negative. I don't see it that way. I think that the voices of the future, like I said, Shuttler's Cabinets and these small businesses are very positive. There's some, queasiness when Gene Saunders, the town's only black mayor, talks about the segregation he suffered in the 50s. Nobody likes to bring up dark parts of their past. So there's some sort of hesitancy about engaging with that, which I don't blame people. It's their town, and I've never pretended to be anything but an outsider. One reason I'm excited about going to the Mound on Saturday, 2 p.m. screening, is that there'll be a Q&A, and I get to talk to people. And, I welcome the conversation. So somebody wrote me a long negative review, 6,400 words. I published it on the blog because this is America, and we should have conversations and not be afraid to disagree. So if somebody has a contrary take on the film, I happily publish it on the blog or I listen to them. And I think it's a really great, stimulating way of talking about really important issues that, again, are particular in Moundsville, but also affect towns in the whole country.
I saw when the movie first came out, the documentary first came out, I saw a lot of social media posts from Moundsville or the surrounding areas saying the things that you were saying. Why does he have to talk about bad things in town? Why can't he just highlight the good stuff? And my thought at the time was, well, our communities are all a combination of what we were, what we are, what we're going to be, and that includes some good things, some bad changes, and some hopes for the future. And, I'm one of these folks who believe if you don't acknowledge, first of all, your past, and if you don't acknowledge the reality of changing times, you'll never be able to move forward into the future. And my sense of the documentary is that's kind of the message that times change, but you have to try to do what you can to remain true to your roots.
I mean, that's exactly it, Howard. You hit the nail on the head of what I realized I was trying to accomplish in the end, which was, my favorite saying as a journalist is many things are true at the same time. And, I think the movie takes a very positive view on what's possible for the future by, again, highlighting these local businesses. And, I'm very much a neutral journalist. I'm not a political person. I'm not out to get anybody. I was out there to listen to people and hear their stories and put them all together in a way that's compelling. And, it's been really satisfying to have people engage with it because after screenings, instead of saying, talking politics and fighting, people will say, well, my dad did this job and I did this job, and here's how things have changed. Like, they'll talk about the specifics of their actual life instead of fighting about politics. And I think that's what Americans, in the end, need to do more of, and I hope this story helps do that.
It seems that politics does invade all aspects of our life. I am curious, and you say you try to keep the politics out of the movie, but as you discuss things with people in Moundsville, as you're working on the documentary, how big a factor did Moundsvillians feel politics was? Did you hear a lot of that as, it's so-and-so's fault, or it's the Democrats' fault, or the Republicans' fault? Is that an underlying theme that was there when you talk to people?
Usually not. People have a certain grief about what's been lost. And obviously, Trump and his campaign played into that. That's not a secret. And I think that grief is super important to acknowledge. So people would not bring up politics explicitly. They would bring up the grief, right? And at the end, as a journalist, I would say, well, what are your politics? Because I was curious, obviously. And I did think about including that stuff in the movie. But the contrast, Howard, between what people said about their own lives, which was like layered and nuanced and rich and had all this depth to it, and the politics, which were like basically repeating stuff they'd seen on TV, which I don't blame people. That's how a lot of people do their politics. But there was just so much more richness in the stuff that was about their own lives. And so that became clear that, like, the real human value of the story was in people's lives, not their opinions.
Well, I mean, I think that's really important. This is a show, as talk shows tend to be, that often focuses on politics. But I often say we talk too much about politics in certain venues, like in the media, and in our real lives, when we get together at the bar or have a cup of coffee at the coffee shop, it usually is much more about, you're right, about our lives, our businesses, our whatever's in our kids, those sorts of things. And I think sometimes we have a really skewed perspective that politics invades everything. And I think for most people, we go about our lives, just go about our lives without that deep a concern about politics.
I think people in big cities are way more politically focused, and that in towns like Moundsville, there actually aren't that many bitter discussions about national politics. People are trying to figure out what day the swimming pool should open, or where the new traffic light should go, or who should get a business permit. And your neighbor with the Trump sign, you might in big cities, you might think, well, those people hate each other. I mean, that's your neighbor, so you have common ground. And I think there's a lot less division at local level than people think.
Did you have a particular business that you really, you mentioned, we talked about Ruttenberg, she did a piece on that for your blog. A particular business that jumped out at you as a really interesting one in Moundsville that caught your attention, caught your eye?
Well, Shuttler, which is in the movie, because this is a manufacturing company. So what does that mean? 50 years ago, that means 500 workers and unionized workforce and big employer. This company runs with robotic German-made technology, and so you forget that all around Appalachia and Rust Belt are scattered these little shops that employ really high-tech stuff to make manufacture stuff, but it employs 12, 13 people instead of 500, and that is the new face of manufacturing. And even if a lot of manufacturing comes back to America, that is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like Shuttler's. It's not going to look like Mark's Toys, which employed 2,000 people in its heyday.
That's a good point. I have to move on. I'd love to talk to you maybe more at some point. Maybe we'll reconvene this at some other point. But folks who'd like to see the movie Moundsville, it's a documentary. It's being shown is it Saturday? Give me the details.
Saturday, 2 p.m. It's free. It's at the Mound, which is over 2,000 years old. I think it's a really cool event. I'll be there. Gary Ritter, Moundsville's official historian, will be there. He'll present, and then we'll do a Q&A after the film.
Sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds like a good documentary. John, thank you for your time today. Again, I might get in touch with you again. I'd like to maybe talk some more. But thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Would love to. Anytime, Howard. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. John Miller, one of the directors of the movie Moundsville documentary. It's a movie, but it's a documentary, Moundsville. Many of you have seen it. I know that I have not seen it, but I know that when it first came out, there was a lot of discussion on social media, and there were people who said, oh, my heavens, why does he talk about all the negative stuff? But my sense of it is that he talks about the negative stuff, negative as in the problems that the town has had, and then looks at where do we go next. But if you haven't seen the documentary, chance to watch it. It's on public television, but it's going to be shown at the Grave Creek Mound Museum this Saturday at 2 p.m. There will be a question and answer period with some of the folks involved in making the documentary. Should be a really good event. Check that out. It's 8:31, 29 till the hour. We are the Watchdog Morning Show. I had told you a little bit yesterday about some new ethics allegations that have cropped up against Alex Mooney, congressman from the 2nd Congressional District, who is actually battling with incumbent congressman in our area, Dave McKinley, for the Republican nomination for the now 2nd District. Mooney's got these new allegations against him. I gave you kind of a brief overview yesterday, but Stephen Allen Adams has been working on this story. The info comes, I think, primarily from Roll Call magazine, but Steve is going to kind of elucidate a bit more for us coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show. And looking ahead to next hour, our interviews with candidates for the Ohio County School Boards continue. Andy Garber is going to be here with us in studio to talk about his run for the school board, why he wants to run, what some of the issues are he wants to tackle. That's coming up in the next hour. Right now at 8:32, 28 till the hour, it's time to check into the newsroom from the Big 7 for Ohio Valley headlines.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News at Ohio Valley and ABC Ohio Valley. Only on AM 1600 WKKX. The Watchdog.
Good Thursday morning, Ohio Valley. I'm Stephen Ruffing with your 7 News headlines. Police continue to investigate a fire on Wheeling Island this morning. Residents who live in the area of Zane Street saw flames and heavy smoke and immediately called 911. Wheeling Public Information Officer Philip Stahl tells us heavy smoke shot out of a building at 22 Zane Street. Stahl says the call came in around 6:30 last night. Firefighters remained on scene throughout the evening. He says no one was inside and no injuries. According to Stahl, the structure itself is unstable. Stay with 7 News, online and on air, for more on this developing story. St. Clairsville police are warning the public of a possible scam. Police say their department has received 3 reports within 24 hours. They say people are getting calls from a man who identifies himself as a sergeant with the St. Clairsville Police Department. The man says he needs to talk about an urgent fraud case. The department said the man's name and phone numbers were different each time. Police say to not give any personal information. If you receive a call, contact police at 740-695-0123 or stop by in person at their office. Call it the battle for gas tax relief in West Virginia, but will Governor Justice add it to a special legislative session? Democrats have been calling on Justice to suspend the state's 37.5-cent gas tax for a month. The governor resisted. He says he doesn't have sole authority to do that it could put state road construction bonds in jeopardy. That was a look at your headlines. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
A new home for the WVU men's soccer program. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Caridi. That story coming up on today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics.
At Kroger, we believe fresh means holding our produce to a higher standard. That's why we do up to a 27-point inspection on our produce. Like for citrus, we check for things like scarring and sunburn. Yep, oranges can sunburn, and we'll make sure you never see it. In fact, we only allow the best oranges, lemons, and grapefruits to reach our shelves. Because when it comes to fresh for everyone, we believe the juice is worth the squeeze. Kroger, fresh for everyone. 42 million Americans struggle with hunger, yet 35% of the food in this country is wasted. Those aren't just numbers, they're our neighbors, your daughter's friend from school, the family of 4 next door. The Kroger Company's Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation is committed to making fresh food accessible to all by ensuring it never goes to waste. Together, we can help end hunger. Learn more at zerohungerzerowastefoundation.org.
The game of conference musical chairs for the WVU men's soccer program looks to finally be over. WVU's athletic director Shane Lyons announcing yesterday that the Mountaineers will now be an affiliate member of the Sun Belt Conference. If that comes as a surprise, what do you say we have a refresher course, because this can get a bit complicated. First off, the Big 12 does not offer men's soccer, so the Mountaineers have been playing in the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. Well, that relationship turned less than ideal, so the Mountaineers were scheduled to make the move to Conference USA. That was cheered loudly when it was announced. CUSA plays very good men's soccer. Marshall won its national title in Conference USA. But, as you probably know, Conference USA was a victim of conference reorganization, which made that destination no longer desirable for WVU. So, here comes the Sun Belt. They have created a 9-team men's soccer league that will start play this coming season. West Virginia, South Carolina, and Kentucky will compete as affiliate members. They will join Sun Belt newcomers Marshall, Old Dominion, and James Madison, with the current members Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, and Georgia State. Those 9 schools have over 100 all-time appearances in the NCAA tournament. West Virginia will play each of the other members once during the season, starting off with Coastal Carolina September 17, and then they'll play Marshall in Huntington on September the 24th. That is today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield.
You know, there's variety shows, and then there's, well, my variety show. I'm Bill DeFabio, and I bring you the best variety talk in the Ohio Valley, quite possibly the world. Join me from noon till 2 to talk sports, nostalgia, and hear from some of the legends of the game. You won't believe who I have on next. The Bill DeFabio Variety Show, noon till 2 on the Watchdog.
Introducing our new redesigned 7 News app. Our new app features a sleek, modern design, an easy-to-navigate home screen with quick access to local news content and a localized weather forecast. Subscribing to notifications is easier, and with one tab, you have access to recent push notifications. There are more ways to watch and find video. To get the new WTRF 7 News app, just update the latest version or download the WTRF 7 News app in your Apple or Google Play Store by searching WTRF.
Island Pawnbrokers is now your local firearm dealer. In a pinch? Need cash quick? See us before going to the big box stores. Paying top dollar for firearms, gold, silver, tools, coins, and electronics. Don't lose your good credit. Let us give you instant cash. Stop by 2 North Broadway Street on Wheeling Island, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Island Pawnbrokers. Stop in for instant cash.
Glenville State University's serene, safe campus is located just 15 miles off I-79 in the town of Glenville, West Virginia. At Glenville State University, you can discover friends to last a lifetime, professors who broaden your perspective, and the skills and education for future success. Glenville State is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year, and there's never been a better time to see what GSU has to offer you. Contact us and learn how you can join the Pioneer family. Visit glenville.edu/apply.
The best in local talk is on your FM dial. 98.1 and 97.7. We are the Watchdog. Keep up with the ever-changing world of sports all night long. Sports Map Radio is on the Watchdog. FM 98.1, AM 1600.
Miss a part of the show? Want to hear a segment again? Check out our podcast page at watchdognetwork.com. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Still 47 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 46 at the home studios in Elm Grove, and 46 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Little light drizzle still floating around in the Ohio Valley this morning. It's not going to be a big deal this morning. Get a bit more scattered actual showers coming in later this afternoon. Daytime high 58, high 50 tomorrow. More scattered showers tomorrow. Some flurries could mix in the morning on Saturday. So that's your forecast to look forward to. And for Palm Sunday, it looks like it's going to be a pretty nice day. Mixture of clouds and sun. Daytime high only 49, so it's going to be cold around church time. But no rain, no snow, nothing like that predicted for Sunday, which is Palm Sunday. 8:40, 20 till the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Coming up next hour, Andy Garber is running for Ohio County School Board. He is one of a number of candidates running. 5, I think, are still running. One of them's already dropped out. It's a big race. A lot of folks paying attention to the school board race in Ohio County. There are some issues in Ohio County that have been front and center for a while this year. And, of course, a lot of concern over education in the state because of the anti-racism bill or the CRT bill or whatever, however you want to phrase it, that the legislature debated but ran out of time before they passed last time. So Andy Garber, one of the candidates, coming up in the next hour of the show. Right now, it's our old friend Stephen Adams with us here from the Ogden newspaper chain. Stephen, good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Howard. It's a little bit of an overcast day here in Charleston.
Yeah, it's kind of a dreary day here, too. It could be, if I have some time when I'm done, it might just be take a nap day for me. See, when you're as old as I am and you're sort of semi-retired, you can take a nap. I suppose you can't choose to take a nap. Well, you got a little office down there at the Capitol. You could just hide in a cubbyhole somewhere and nobody would catch you, right?
I mean, I usually come home around 4 o'clock, and I sneak in a nap before the wife gets home.
You are, and I've said this to you, you and your wife are really busy people, though. You're out and about. You're eating. You're going camping. You're doing all kinds of things. Oh, and you're going. Where are you going next week? You're going on a cruise or something next week?
Oh my goodness, yes. We are flying to Orlando next Wednesday, and then we're heading to Port Canaveral on Thursday and taking a Carnival cruise down to Cozumel, Mexico, with only one stop in between at their private island. And I'm really looking forward to that. I've already been perusing the menus and the drink menus, and I'm ready to go.
I haven't been cruising now for several years, but my wife and I have done a number of cruises. I really enjoy cruising. I like to visit some of the ports of call, but honestly, I'm just as happy to be on board, and sit at the pool and read a book and, frequently go to the food places,
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing too. I'm already loading up some books on my Kindle, and I got a waterproof Kindle for Christmas, so it can handle being read inside the pool. So I'm going to do a lot of catch-up reading.
All right, well, have yourself a good time there. I wanted to talk to you about the story. You had this piece in the Intel yesterday, and I shared a bit of it with the audience yesterday, but I want to just flesh it out a bit today. Alex Mooney, congressman from the 2nd District, currently running against Dave McKinley for the Republican nomination for the 2nd District, the newly redrawn 2nd District, had been facing some ethics charges, which we talked about previously. And they had to do with him using campaign money for fast food restaurants and for fishing trips and some other things. But there is a second round of ethics questions that have come up now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's apparently right. This got revealed through Roll Call, a Washington, D.C. based publication that primarily covers Congress and Capitol Hill and things of that nature. And they had talked to a number of unidentified former Mooney staffers who had received letters from the Office of Congressional Ethics, which is the nonpartisan group that looks into some of these ethical issues and then forwards their investigation and their results to the House Ethics Committee, which ultimately takes that information and then decides to levy any type of punishment on that. And as has been talked about in my stories, and I'm sure you've talked about, the results of their investigation won't be released till later in May after the primary. But the letters that they sent off to some of these staffers sort of revealed some new scope of the investigation, specifically focused. Now, obviously, the previous investigation that came out was focused on campaign finance violations, use of campaign finance dollars for personal uses, food, trips, things of that nature. But it looks like they're going into a different aspect of whether staff, and we're talking either congressional staff or even campaign staff, were used by Mooney to do personal errands, personal favors for Mooney, his wife, and his 3 children. And then not only on top of that, but it looks like they're also trying to determine whether there was any type of messing around with his calendar, whether his electronic calendar, or whatnot, to see if they maybe tried to hide or obfuscate some of the things that Mooney was doing by basically altering the calendars that got turned over to investigators. So those are 2 pretty big deals.
The fact that they are looking into, and I do want to point out, as you said, they're just looking into this right now. I don't believe they've issued any findings, have they?
That's correct. There are no charges along with these. The Office of Congressional Ethics is relatively transparent. They had completed their first investigation. That should be pointed out. This is kind of a second investigation. They released the results. They completed their first investigation, I should say, last summer. They released the results of those in early fall. They completed this investigation and turned it over to the House Ethics Committee in December. I would imagine we'll see a report on that probably in the next month or so. But no, as of now, we don't know what they are recommending to the House Ethics Committee and what they're specifically alleging as of yet.
I want to go back to the base charges in a minute here, the using staff for personal business, but it's interesting to me that they have at least some indication. There's been somebody telling them, I have to assume, or somebody claiming that there was tampering with documents, whether it's calendar or whatever. They're withholding or editing or tampering with documents. It is interesting to me that they are at least looking into that aspect of things.
Yeah, there are a number of former Mooney staffers, some of them are even known to me, that have information. I've been trying to get information out of them for a while. I've been told the reason they went with roll call in this instance is they're half afraid that they tried to go with local publications and local reporters, that they might be too easily identified for Mooney, which is something I completely understand. But yeah, there are some disaffected staffers out there that are sitting on information, and they're talking to these investigators, and this is what's pointing them in the directions that they're going into for, again, a second investigation. In fact, I think the roll call story kind of points out, talking to somebody that used to be in the Office of Congressional Ethics and someone that works for a DC-based government watchdog, pointed out it's pretty rare when the OCE goes back and does a second investigation, almost on the heels of doing the first one. So it's all very interesting.
The allegation of, excuse me, using personal staff, using campaign staff or congressional staff for personal business. I'm not. I wrestle with that, Stephen. I mean, isn't it somewhat? You're pretty astute in this kind of stuff. I mean, isn't it really somewhat standard for a member of Congress to have staff, get them some coffee or maybe even take their laundry someplace? I mean, isn't that somewhat kind of expected of staffers?
I think there's a fine line, and I think there are certainly circumstances where doing some things is not that big of a deal. In this case, the examples that the story points out and that the OCE was looking into was one, staffers in the congressional office trying to work on finding out how Alex Mooney's wife, who is a doctor, how she can get her medical license in the state of West Virginia, including making contact with obviously government agencies, state government agencies, to gather more information on that. The other example that was cited in the roll call story was staffers taking Mooney's children around for errands and dropping them off at sports events and other activities and things of that nature. I do think there's a difference between getting somebody coffee or doing laundry. Obviously, congressman's got to have his suits on, but when you're talking about getting into specific areas of doing things for the children, if you recall, several years ago, there was a former state Supreme Court justice that got in trouble for something very, very similar.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess it certainly is different when it's one thing to. I'm guessing it's one thing to ask on behalf of yourself as the congressperson. It's something else to then pawn off jobs for your kids or your wife on your staff. And I would assume, as the investigation continues, there's an issue of cumulative effect. And I'm guessing here, I'm just sort of speculating out loud. I would think it's one thing to say, oh, geez, Bob, my son's got to get to school and I forgot to get him his book bag. Can you run his book bag there? That's one thing. If it is every day I need you to take my kid to school, the cumulative effect is very different than just an incident. I don't know if the OCE will make a difference there, but in my mind, those are different. There's a distinction there. You follow me?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Howard. I really do. I mean, look, I've worked for, people in government. I worked for the state Senate, so I worked for all 34 senators. I worked for Secretary of State Mac Warner. And, occasionally, you might get asked to do, something personal. And the issue is not whether it happens just once, like, hey, I forgot something, can you go to my house and get it, or something along those lines. I do think you're right that it tends to be a pattern of behavior when you're actively using your staff for things that you should be and can be doing yourself. Did Alex Mooney's wife not have access to Google, or could they not call, the medical examiners board to get that information for themselves? I'm pretty sure it's probably publicly available and probably pretty easy to figure out how to transfer a medical license from Maryland to West Virginia. But yeah, I do think it tends to be more of a pattern than anything else.
Now, Stephen, I'm sure people listening are wondering this. Where do these complaints come from? How does the Office of Congressional Ethics get a complaint, and how do they decide whether to investigate it or whether it's just a frivolous complaint? And I guess here's what I'm thinking. Some folks may be saying to themselves, "Hey, there's a big hot campaign going on. Are the McKinley staffers giving stories to the OCE and then leading to an investigation?" So what starts an investigation? How do they get this information?
Good question. It can come many different ways. I presume OCE takes anonymous complaints. I believe the complaint that first even started the first investigation was done by a member of the public in the Eastern Panhandle, if I recall from previous stories. So either staff or public can complain if they see something inappropriate, and then from there the OCE's got discretion to decide whether whatever it is that's been filed as a complaint really kind of rises to the level of expending resources. And doing these type of investigations certainly isn't cheap because it involves manpower, it involves going through hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of documents, and expending the time to do these type of investigations. So again, I think it says a lot that the OCE not only has completed one investigation on this, and we've reported about that, and what they recommend to the House Ethics Commission as far as wrongdoing is out there in the public sphere, and the House Ethics Commission is weighing that currently. But the fact that they didn't turn around and do a second investigation, and it's not a matter of them being in the middle of it. They've completed that one too. That wrapped up in December, and they've turned that stuff over to the House Ethics Committee too. It's one of the reasons why the House Ethics Committee extended the time that they were going to take to look into the specific matters involving Mooney, because they were going to release that before May, and then they turned around and said that they would release it toward the end of May because they were reviewing further information. So we'll see if the House Ethics Committee thinks there's a there, but they're certainly taking the matter seriously and deliberating.
The first round of complaints, they did find, the OCE found violations, which they then turned over to the Ethics Committee. I'm correct about that? So they did believe that he inappropriately used campaign funds for his luncheon visits and vacations and personal use and so on. Right now, we don't know what the determination will be in this second investigation, whether they're going to determine that there were violations or not. So that's still pending. Again, correct me if I'm wrong with both of those.
No, you're absolutely right on that. I figure we probably won't know the truth of the whole thing and what they dug up and what's happening until after the May primary, which I'm sure has to be frustrating for the McKinley campaign. That would love to have some concrete stuff out there, but I can imagine that they're already preparing ads with this information from the roll call article, the levy against the Mooney campaign. So expect those ads very soon.
Yeah, any minute now, probably. You're absolutely right. A poll out recently had McKinley a little bit ahead. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, that is correct. That was a poll that was put out here and paid for by the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce, which is very interesting because I don't know if you saw on Twitter, I posted a couple days ago that the Chamber is also now doing, the U.S. Chamber and the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce are doing a six-figure ad buy. I don't know if those ads have hit yet, but they're paying pretty hefty dollar amounts to put some ads up to thank McKinley for pushing for domestic oil production. I obviously can't help but think that is very much a campaign thing, and I've been told that there will be an endorsement coming down the pike soon, and I think it's safe to say, considering that the Chamber paid for that poll and the Chamber's paying for this very pricey ad buy, that I'd say McKinley has the endorsement of the Chamber of Commerce, but that's not been officially announced yet.
One last quick question before I let you go. This roll call story, I know you used that as the basis for your story yesterday that we saw in the Intelligencer up here and other Ogden papers around the state. Have you reached out to Mooney's office at all on this yet or not?
Yeah, they've been radio silent with me specifically on this story. Now, they did at least comment for the roll call story itself. congressman's office said they continue to cooperate fully with the investigation. I look forward to its resolution. But I certainly have reached out to the Mooney people, both on the campaign side and congressionally, just to see if they had anything additional to say, and they have been radio silent. Of course, this weekend we had a big profile piece on Mooney. That was the first time I've been able to get Mooney to do an interview with me since the campaign started. So I have been in contact with them on other things, but on this, they have ignored my request for comments.
Stephen, thanks for your help today. Have you a good trip. I probably won't talk to you till you're back from your vacation. So relax, enjoy, read some good books, eat some good food, and just you and your wife take it easy. And we'll talk to you probably when you get back.
Sounds good. I think by the time we get back, there'll be some new campaign finance numbers out by us. So we'll have things to talk about.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Stephen. Stephen Adams from the
Thanks,
Ogden
Howard.
Papers. It's 9 o'clock. ABC covers the world now.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
From ABC News.
All right, Biff, I think Andy Garber is coming into the studio. So let me know when he's there. And I'm going to take a break here. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. But I think he's coming into the studio. So keep an eye out for him and let me know. All right, thanks.